And let's share our screen. Okay, this is so last year. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you, Starla. Okay. And I can see like 5 of you, just so you know. So you lucky 5 be the ones that I probably have a question about. I'll look to you. There we go. All right, we're gonna start. Okay, so daily 5 is this like really big, large topic we could spend all day covering. I decided to focus on just the basics of daily 5. It's basically going to be how we get started, what it is, and some resources that might help to support you. So if that is what you were hoping for, you are in the right place. The bit.ly for today is up here. So if you'd like to follow along on your own computer, or just write that down for later or for a friend, they can go back and reference all the slides. There's a few links within it that they might find useful and helpful. So I would write that down. If you don't want to follow along now, you can do that later. My name is Audra Sabaji. For those who I don't know, I'm a DIS this year, former LST and elementary primary grades teacher prior to that. So daily 5 is something I know well. But when you're trying to decide what would be important for a broad range of people, it becomes a little more difficult. So I hope today that I can cover things that you find helpful and are relevant to the work that you are doing. And again, I'm sorry, I'm still just admitting people as I go. Okay. So some norms that we have for today will just be if you don't mind staying muted throughout, unless you have a question or you have a comment, then just feel free to unmute. I won't be able to see like the hands raised at this point. So if you just want to interrupt for a question or a comment, feel free to do that and then go ahead and mute yourselves after that. I use the chat box, but if I'm being honest, I don't even see that. Oh, there it is. Yes, we can use the chat box today. Can I ask one of you, let's see, Alejandra, is the chat box putting like a big box over the text, or are you seeing the chat box?
I think I can move it out of the way.
Or do I have to do that?
I was able to move mine so I can read the screen.
Okay, awesome. So I'll do my best to try to check the chat box and the numbers, but if there's something that you put in there and I'm not responding to, just please unmute and ask. We're going to keep this very casual. Okay. So our outcomes for today, we're going to develop a shared understanding of what daily 5 is, discover how to implement daily 5 into your classroom, and then identify resources for support. The bulk of our time is going to really be on that purple section, the how. Like, what do we need to get started? It's been a while since I've done daily 5. I mean, most of us were virtual last year for at least part of the year. Question in the chat, yes, you can absolutely do that. Make sure that, yeah, if they join, then they'll get credit for today as well. Okay. Before we begin, is there, I want you guys to put in the chat right now, if you don't mind, just putting something that, a reason why you signed up for this session today, something that you hoped to get out of this. So if everyone could just put one thing in the chat, that would kind of help me know where we're all at. Awesome. Thank you, Diane. Refresher to support a new teacher even. Awesome. Some new resources, more ideas about daily 5 resources. Okay. Sources, got it. Effective resources for reading stations. What it looks like. Okay. Yes. And of all these things, like really, it looks like the request is mostly for the resources. So I do have some linked in here, but I gave you a folder. I started a folder that is shareable with everybody. So I think what I will do after is continue to add to that because it seems like that is what most of you are looking for, and I can absolutely help with that. And what it looks like in the classroom. Perfect. Okay, well, you are in the right place. If you get one thing out of this today, I just hope that you feel a little less anxiety with beginning these and continuing what you already have started, knowing that this is going to just be a way that you can have the kids working within literacy while you are doing guided reading or a small group station. So what is Daily 5? The Daily 5 is a framework for structuring literacy time so students develop lifelong habits of reading, writing, and working independently. And that is from the two sisters, the Daily 5 authors. What they mean is this is not a curriculum. It's not a program. It's just a way to facilitate the literacy work that we want our students to be practicing. Okay. Each of the sites, and actually I believe every teacher who's been teaching 3 years or longer should have this book in from primary grades. LSTs all had them, CSPs had them, and there were a couple of extra at most sites. So if you don't have this book, I would check with your site to see if they have any extras or ones that were turned in from teachers maybe not in the grade or at the school anymore, so that you can have access to that. And if not, maybe ask your sites if that's something they could purchase for you, because all the information from today's presentation came from this, as well as former LSTs, like teachers leading teachers presentations that had already been created. So these are the 5 stations. Let me move this out of the way. The daily 5 stations are read to self, work on writing, read to someone, listen to reading, and word work. And, that's what they talk about. You can feel free to add another center if you need to work with your scheduling. I used to have 2 word work centers. One would be the manipulation type word sorts, but then I used to use Lexia, but iReady would be like a comparison. You could say you're going to go on iReady and you're going to work in the phonics path or whatever I don't know what it's called actually, but where they're working with sounds and sight words and vocabulary. So this is what we're talking about, but of course you're going to make it work for you. The core beliefs of Daily 5 are trust and respect, that you're going to explicitly instruct the kids on what you expect from them during this time. And you would check in on them to make sure that what we've talked about and what you've shown them is actually happening at their stations. Community, it empowers students to hold others accountable for behaviors. Their learning, the respect and kindness is all there. And then choice, it's all about choice in Daily 5 as much as possible. We begin with telling them where they need to sit, and then we give them a choice of where they can sit for their center. We start with telling them which centers to go to, and then we might feel comfortable releasing them to choose which center they want to go to. So the research has shown that more choice they have, the more empowered they're going to feel to the work that they're doing. The last 3 beliefs are accountability. Once you model and you teach them how to do each component, then we expect them to do it and do it well. And we check in with them periodically to make sure that it's still happening. The brain research. So Regi Routman is a literacy guru, and her studies suggest that we should have a 20-80 ratio in our teaching. And so 20% of the time we should be teaching, and 80% of the time the kids should be practicing skills. Not all independently, but they should be practicing in some capacity. And so Daily 5 really allows for additional time of practicing skills that you've already taught in the classroom. transitions in, as body and brain breaks as well as the kids are rotating, as they're grabbing their materials or putting them back. That's a moment for them to kind of recharge and refocus and get ready for their next station. Whereas when we used to do IWT, for those who remember independent work time, it was just sit for an hour with all these things on a list to do, cross them off. And there's like no moment for the students to catch their breath and pause. So this is just a different approach, and it gives them that refocus. There are, oh my goodness, let me move my face out of the way here. Sorry. We've got 10 strategies for teaching independence. These are the different things that we have to teach them so that they can be independent. You don't want this to be something you're chasing along the year. You want to teach it well to begin with, and then just have to touch base with it here and there. If we don't take the time to teach it at the beginning, it is something that you're going to feel frustrated about, and it's going to look messy. So it looks a little overwhelming, but I promise you, if you take the time to do it, it'll be fine. I'm going to go through each of these in the following slides, but this is what they all are. So what I've kind of done is we're going to go ahead and talk about the eye chart. The first thing you're going to do is you guys are going to create an eye chart with your class, and it's going to cover the first the first 5 steps to being independent. So you're going to tell them which center you're going to work on. So read to self is always the first one we want to start with. You're going to set the purpose. So right underneath they put, why would we do this? Oh, because it's going to be fun. We're going to become better readers and writers. So just write your purpose right underneath it. And as you have kids in front of you, you're going to talk about what students will be doing during this time and what teachers will be doing, like what it looks like. For our TK and kinder kids, you might want to put little pictures of what that looks like, because they're not going to be able to read these words with you. You might have a picture of a child sitting, with a book, and then you have a teacher with the group of kids, some more visual approach to the poster. But this is going to be the anchor chart you have up and refer to as you are teaching what you expect from the kids. So you're going to record the behaviors. For example, they're going to stay in one place for read to self. They're going to read silently or in their quiet whisper voice. They're going to read the whole time. They're not going to get up and take a water break or go talk to a friend. They're going to keep to themselves, and their eyes are focused on their book. So you want to be really specific on what it looks like for the kids, because anybody can say, go read a book. And if you don't set parameters for them, they might be confused as to what their limits are. And then teacher is always going to be working with students, whether that be an assessment time, guided reading, but that's what the poster is going to look like. So the suggestion from the 2 sisters is you model behaviors like, okay, so if this is what I want from you, what is it going to look like? You might say, Julia, can you please show me what it would look like to stay in one place? Thumbs up for Julia. Okay, Karen, can you please show me how you would keep your eyes focused in the book? Awesome. And then you might say, I have no idea. Like, Juan, would you please model, like, what would it look like if Julia wasn't keeping her eyes in the book? So model the undesirable behaviors. And we would ask the kids, is that going to help them become better readers if they are, looking around the classroom and talking to their friends? So it's almost like that non-example we used to have with our explicit instruction, but then always come back and model an appropriate behavior. So always ending with what we want to see from kids. Here's a kindergarten class where they were setting up the read to self. And so the 6th step to independence is place students around the room. And you're going to practice. You're going to say, okay, everyone pick your own space. You have a book already. Here we go. And we're going to practice and build our stamina. And what that means is the students are going to follow the, they're going to follow the identified behaviors on the poster until somebody breaks the stamina. And as soon as that happens, then we document how long it was that we were on task, and we try to reach a goal. So I'll get to the next step in just a minute. So practice and build stamina. I know I have a slide after that that goes over that more in depth. Steps 8 through 10, stay out of the way. We're not monitoring at this time, and we're not, what do I want to say? We're not redirecting. We're not giving positive feedback or praise. We're not giving that motivation. We're just standing back to see what they can do on their own. Because if you are working with a guided reading group or you are doing an assessment, you're not going to be giving that positive reinforcement. So we don't want to practice with that either. Have a quiet signal to gather students, and then you're going to have a group check-in at the end. So this is what I was talking about with building stamina. You'll create some kind of chart like this, some digital display could be, everyone could have their own chart, whatever you decide or however you decide to track it. But it's, you're going to practice the station for as long as your barometer students, that they call them, can stay on task. So as soon as somebody gets up and breaks it, we're going to stop the time and say, okay, good job, boys and girls. You guys lasted 6 minutes at this center. And we're going to color it. We're going to gather them back together. We're going to chart it. And then we're going to look at each day. We're going to date it. Look at our growth. We only started with 2 minutes the first day. And then we've gradually gone up to 6 minutes. What is our goal? What do we think we can actually do before we are ready to do this with the teacher having a teacher table? Our goal is really 15 minutes because we want to be able to get a full guided reading group in. But I like to let the kids try to give me that time frame so that they can have ownership of the goal. So again, no positive reinforcement during practice. We're not walking around giving tickets for our PBIS, and we're not saying, I really like the way so-and-so is on task right now. You're not even walking around roaming. You are standing back at this moment. It might be a time where you've got something to fill out, your computer, and you're going to have probably 5 minutes to do so, but you're just kind of watching to see, is somebody whispering to a friend, okay, there's our end, we're done, we broke stamina. I don't call that child out. We're not going to embarrass anyone, but we're going to say, okay, our stamina has been broken. Good job for the 5 minutes. But tomorrow, what do you think we can do for tomorrow? And that is all. So I'm going to pause for a minute because I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking in a short amount of time. I want you to think about either a question you have or a comment you might have about how to begin setting up the independence for daily 5. So either a question or a comment about how to set up the independence piece. And then just put some kind of comment, if you could, in the chat for me. If we had more time, I'd have you all share out, but gotta keep it moving. And if you're with a team, if one of you from the team just wants to put something in the chat, that would be fine. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Bitly. I just saw that. Okay, so some are still thinking, others sent me a private message. Practice each station as a whole class first. Yeah, just an aha, not using positive reinforcement during centers, right? And that's to teach them what they can do on their own without you reinforcing it, because that won't be the reality. Awesome. We'll go ahead and keep going. There we go. Okay, so read to self. We're gonna go ahead and talk about there's foundation lessons for each of this the 5 stations as well. Some have more than others. Read to self, you have to teach these things before they're ready to do it independently also. So you're going to teach them 3 ways to read a book. They're going to learn that they can read the words, they can read the pictures, or they can retell the story. So you can determine for your class and model what is appropriate for your grade level. But if you've got TK kids, they don't know the words, but they might be familiar with a story that you've read. So they could pick up The Very Hungry Caterpillar and they could completely tell that story as long as their story matches the pictures. So that would be one way to read the book. This is also good for our English learners because they might not be comfortable with reading the words, but they can make sense of the meaning based on the pictures and the words that they do know. So we eliminate that. Well, I don't know how to read. That's not a problem for read to self. Everyone can be a reader. You're going to teach them I pick good fit books, and the I pick is an acronym. The IPICK. So I is I choose the book. P is the purpose. Like, what's the purpose for my reading? The I is interest. C is comprehension. Like, do I understand what I'm reading? And then the K is for knowledge. Do I know most of the words? And then choosing a successful spot, you have to show them like what would be off limits. We don't want them under our teacher desk, somewhere that would be unsafe, not near the water fountain where there's going to be heavy traffic, or in front of a door. So you have to model all those things. Like, where would we allow them to sit? Maybe you only want them sitting at tables, or you're allowed to sit in the library. Each of these is a mini lesson, just a few minutes spent on showing them where they can read. I went through like in more detail on the slides because if anybody was joining me later, or you want more information about it, it's all here for you, but I'm going to skip just for the sake of time because I kind of just talked about it. Here are some sample eye charts for read to self. This is what they could look like. Most of them are similar in that it looks like a T with the heading at the top and then the reason that we do it. But then they have these little posters and things. TPT is like our best friend for the freebies on Daily 5. There are so many different posters created, and I haven't had to pay for one that I've had. So if you just search, you'll find things like that. And then you can take away the big, large poster eventually and just convert down to this small size to have up for reference. This is what it could look like. You could have, because you're gonna have to organize the books for the kids in some way. They need their own books. Maybe you have desks where they actually can keep their books, but I've found that books get shoved in and ruined and damaged in some way. So, you might do freezer bags or the reusable bags. So you need to decide what your organization is going to look like for that center. And I'm sorry, I say center, it's really a station, but I don't think I'll ever get away from calling them centers. So work on writing is the next one that you would introduce and to teach. The foundation lessons for writing would be teaching them that they can underline words you don't know how to spell. So we're not all, they don't have to be accurate in order to write it. We want them just to write. And if they're not sure, underline it and keep going. Another mini lesson would be setting up a notebook. So just making sure that they know where they're going to write. If you have something that you're already using, perfect. If not, just, get a spiral notebook with a little sticker label on it and call it their Daily 5 writing. And then choosing what they can write about. So those are the 3 foundation lessons. This is what, their work might look like. You might have a folder that they keep all this work in. These are the notebooks that you might have. They might have dictionaries. I think some of our second grade students in the district have these. So just knowing that they have resources available to them for the writing is going to be helpful as well. They can also have class notebooks where you have them by theme. So you might have one about sports or one about a favorite vacation, and they can choose that class notebook to write in for that day. Take a picture of it, add it to Seesaw or to whatever you have. I think would be probably easier than having to carry that book around and look at everybody's writing like I used to have to do. So there's lots of different options for setting up a notebook, but I used to use what I already had, if I'm being honest, and then add another fun one here and there. And if you're doing like writer's workshop, then it could be a time for them to finish what they're already working on during that time. They could write a kindness letter to a friend or a teacher. We want to make it fun for them. We want to give them choice, but we also understand that our time is limited throughout the day. So you're going to have to maximize your center's time. So if you need them to finish, their writer's workshop, then you just say that's what you're going to work on this week. And then when you finish that, then you have choice in the other writing activities you can work on. This I put because I linked or I shared this resource with you guys at the end, and it's like 26 pages of just topics. And I used to print them and have them next to my writing station. So if we were writing about, if we're learning about zoo animals, it was just another way to have words. It was for kindergarten, first grade, but you could definitely use it in first and second as just idea starter. Sample eye charts, this is what it would look like for work on writing. The eye chart structure doesn't change, so that is helpful when you're doing these mini lessons. It is going to be the same for you, so it's nothing that you have to, retrain yourself on. It's just the content is a little bit different. And then some ideas, model your think alouds. When you are teaching these strategies and you're teaching the different centers, just model what good writers would do. Like, oh, I don't know how to spell that word right now. What should I do? Oh, I remember my teacher said, just underline it. So things like that are going to help the kids with their writing. Accountability, telling them that, not only am I going to be reading these, but we're going to bring these to our share time, our group share, our community share, and you need to be prepared to at least show your writing or read your writing to a partner or whatever it is you want them to do, but knowing that someone's going to be seeing what they're writing. Okay, read to someone. So, okay, the sisters said read to someone was oftentimes a favorite of students. I'm going to be completely honest, and every teacher that I've talked to used to dread this one because they didn't always have the confidence that their kids would be able to read with someone without talking with someone. So it's really going to be imperative that we set this up and take the time to make sure that we're clear on, we can have conversation about the book because you want to check in and ask them what do you remember from that page? Or I like the way you didn't, when you didn't know this, you used a reading strategy, but that the conversation is only about the book, not about recess or whatever else that they want to talk about. But this one's really good because it helps build their or increase their comprehension and fluency. And then they have a partner that can help them if they need it. When we did trainings with this years ago, it was suggested that we partner kids with similar reading levels so that you have the same amount of support for each other. You don't have different book levels that you need to pick from. There's no way if you had a student that was, I don't know, that was striving to read, they wouldn't be able to help coach a student who was completely proficient in their reading. So that was the reason for trying to group them at least similar in reading level. So this one has 7 foundation lessons, but they're quick. It's really just a little, 5-minute, 7-minute lesson that you need to do with some of them. So eek is elbow to elbow, knee to knee. That's basically just how they're sitting, like how you want them, the partner sitting. V is voice level. You're going to show them on the voice level chart, like what it should be if you're at this center, and you're going to model it. Check for understanding, how partners read, how to get started, coaching, like how to coach each other, and then how to choose your partner. So I put in slides, just pictures of what it would look like. You could just have a poster and they can read the little chant for the EEK lesson. The voice level lesson, it just could be as simple as this or whatever you already use in your classroom and say, this is what voice level 1 would look like. This is what you should be, or this is, this would be voice 3 and this is not what we're looking for. So that is just making sure that everyone knows the expectations during this time. Oops. A check for understanding is like making sure that the kids know. Wonderful. Hold on, my emails just came up. Okay, I can't get rid of it. Hold on. There we go. Okay, Ignore that I had 6,000 emails too, by the way. Okay, so you want to check in with, or you want the partners to check in with each other to make sure that they're understanding what they read. That could be like a comprehension bookmark. You could just have a little chart on the wall next to this center station that the kids have to, follow. It could be if you've taught them how to, if you're teaching your favorite part in, early first grade or kindergarten, then you want them to talk about their favorite part in the book. Or if you're talking about dialogue in, second grade, then you want them to look for dialogue in their book and share that with their partner. So you always want to try to tie it to what you're doing whole class, so that becomes a practice of what skills you've taught, rather than just a fluff activity to, fill the time. We never want daily 5 to seem like just busy work. We always want it to be a practice of some sort. So be looking for ways on, if you're teaching these types of questions, the what, where, when, how, why questions, and those are the questions they should be asking of their partner. Here are 2 different ways to read the books. So you can read the same book, like this, each partner could have a copy of the book, or you could have one book in the middle and you share it. There's also a way where they could read different books. I 100% never was able to make this work for my classroom. Some people were, so I always just had them reading the same book and choosing together, or they could do like rock, paper, scissors and like read one book, one first and the next book, after, or I picked this today, but you pick tomorrow. You get to decide that as a teacher, but you need to tell them what it's going to be, so that you don't have any arguing or, kids upset that they didn't get their way. Here's the poster for who goes first, teaching them manners. Let's make a deal. And then talk about coaching. So they're going to have to help their partner. You can use the reading strategies that we're already teaching in guided reading. I put the bookmark here, but I did share it in our folder for later, so that you guys can make copies if you don't have one already, or extra copies for this time. But if you can add, the kids will be able to ask each other, do you need time or do you need a coach? And if a student just wants time to figure it out, then we give them that. But if they want a coach, then the partner is going to have to start pulling out some strategies and say, well, try getting your mouth ready, try sounding it out. Is there any part, or just skip it and move on. So you can see how each of these foundation lessons is going to take a little bit of time that you'll need to set up with them. Let me make sure I've got the last one, and then I'm going to pause. Here we go. Okay. So just some other things. You are going to set them up to start with. You're going to say who their partner is, and then slowly move towards independence of them choosing their partner within a group. And it, like I said earlier, it is helpful to match them by their reading level. This is what the sample eye charts would look like. And if you see here in this picture, they've got kids just right next to each other in different areas of the room. You might say, on my carpet is where you have to sit, but you and your partner determine where on the carpet to sit together. I'm going to check the chat. If you guys have any questions or comments about the first few centers so far, please put something in the chat. Oh, sorry, I'm looking. I think I missed a few. Okay, and here we are back to. Oh, awesome. Okay. So some people are already implementing daily 5. They've been doing one new station weekly. Perfect. Yeah, so honestly, like if we're going through all of these pieces, it does take about 6 weeks is what they say, before kids are completely 100% independent with everything. And then you can feel comfortable in starting your guided reading, which if we were to start day 1, that would be plenty of time to get, everything ready before we even do guided reading. Since we're starting now, you may have to modify some things. You may have already talked about some noise level and sound and stuff. So you could skip some of those lessons that you may have already covered. Okay. Natalie, we're totally good. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so listen to reading. Hearing good reading is obviously going to help with our with all of our students, but especially our striving and EL students, because they're gonna hear what proper fluency and intonation sounds like, and they're just gonna have they'll have a stronger like comprehension, listening comprehension than a reading comprehension. So this is what it looks like. It actually looks it will look a lot different when we have one-to-one iPads in all classes. I know that's not the case in all grades right now. But hopefully if you don't have iPads, then maybe you have at least the old listening center with a CD player and headphones, or maybe you have a set of 5 iPads that, school sites used to have. I'm not sure what you have, but there are lots of ways that it can be organized. These are just some examples, but you've got to teach the kids where to put things, how you want it to be. Like, are they going to bring their own headphones? Are they going to have to go to the QR code chart? So that will be a foundation lesson, as well as, are they working next to their partner and listening and following along? Or are they only following along on their book? What do they do when they're finished? So Epic is going to be a really good one for our students with iPads. It's going to have just a plethora of options, and then they can search by their reading level. I used to use QR codes that would link them to a YouTube story. And so I shared that at the end with you guys as well. Also, let me see. So like if you go to BookFlix, the Fresno County Libraries have, if you use your library number, it's a free account, and they have stories that kids can listen to there. There's a storyline online. It looks like a movie, but I think the words are written as well. So you can have them listen, but then you're going to have some kind of response, some kind of accountability for the work, not a written out, response, because we don't want them to be writing during their listening center. We want them listening, but to know that they actually did it. You can have them just fill out a little post-it of, what was their favorite part, if that's what you're talking about in class that day, or if you're talking about characters and how they change, then they have to just write on a post-it how the character changed in the story they listened to. So everything needs to tie together, but we do want them listening most of the time, not filling out worksheets about what they listened to, if that makes sense, as minimal as possible. Okay, and this is the last one. I think we're going to power through to save time. And then you guys can go back and explore the other pictures. So word work is like the kids love word work. They love manipulating. They love sorting. They get to play. They feel like they're playing with the words, and it's for all different reasons. But there's 3 foundation lessons for word work. So it's basically setup and cleanup of materials. Do they need to go get the materials, or are they already going to be out ready for them at their station? They're going to choose the materials and words to use, or you're going to do that for them depending on the grade level, and then choosing where to sit. Like if it has a lot of pieces, they're going to sit at a table, versus if it's an iPad lesson and they're doing iReady, they can choose maybe to sit on the floor or in a comfy chair. So you're just going to model each of those things with them. These are just sample eye charts. Word work, I feel, was always the most difficult for me, because I wanted to differentiate them as much as possible. And that took a lot longer than the other centers. And sometimes if you're searching on Pinterest or TPT, you have to really vet most of the resources, because they will say things like, oh, just use magnetic letters and letter stamps and rainbow write. But we don't really know if the kids actually know the words when they're doing that. It becomes a copying activity of letters on a page that we don't know if they understand. So there are ways though to tweak it and to make sure that if you are having them, write it, build it, they're doing decorate, which I wouldn't recommend for time. But if you're doing those things, you can have a partner work with a student and read a word on a card to them. So if you said the word me, then the partner can build it, and we know that that was a true indication of whether they knew how to spell the word me or not. And then they could switch and take turns. Then you can use things like the stamps, and you can use the shells or whatever they're talking about to make it more fun, because there's somebody checking on them and giving them the words, if that makes sense. Um, you can build CVC words, you can sort, by the pattern that you're teaching. You can do sorts by prefix, suffix, by root word, base word, shades of meaning. It can be vocabulary based, sight word, high frequency words. The Word Work Center is pretty open in a student exploration and a practice of words that they're already in contact with in the classroom. So whatever your lessons are tailored around, that's what you're going to want to put in the Word Work Center. Also at guided reading, you're going to have word work time with the kids. So that would be a great opportunity to differentiate. So if you know that this group is working on, one specific pattern, and you already have little pieces or whatever it is cut out, give them the baggies and say, take this to your word workstation this week. And I want you to build that word, read it to a partner, write it in a sentence, whatever you want them to do with it. But that would be a quick way of differentiating the activities. Another thing we did, I know at our school, was we used, like I said, back in the day, it was Lexia, and we just let them work on that. If I didn't have something set up for that week, or I didn't change it and I could see, oh, that's getting kind of, boring, and I just knew that it was already going to be differentiated on the device. So that is always an outlet for you as well. These are some pictures I took when I was in LST, and I got to go to different sites for training, and I liked the organization. I think this was at Madison, but they already had in a kindergarten class the little trays set up for the kids at that station, and it had just a picture, and the kids had to spell it. So then you knew without a partner if they could do it or not. And then at the end of centers, the teacher would go by and look to see that they did it or not. Nowadays, if kids had their device, they could take a picture of their work and send it in. Here, this was taken at Sequoia, and the teacher had the sight words that they were teaching in a baggie or in a little pack, and they could pull one, they could build it, and then they had to write it in a sentence and take a picture to show. So this would be evidence that they knew what that word was and that they could use it in a sentence. And then this was in, I believe, a second grade classroom, I think at Lone Star, and the students were building their words with different prefixes. And so they were sorting, I believe, and I'm not sure I didn't get to ask what they were doing with it after, but there's a lot of things you could do with that. They could sort them by the prefix, or they could use them in a sentence. Lots of different options. Some tips with word work, anything here I didn't already say. So it's not a writing center. We don't want them just using their spelling words or writing their spelling words 5 times each. Like, that's not what this is. This is not just rainbow write because that's easy and fun. We have to make sure that it's meaningful, that they know what they're writing or building, because copying words in any way doesn't show that students can read them. So be creative if you like those ideas. Maybe you talk about it in your PLC. What are some options that we have for the Word Work Center? These are some recommended books that help with word work. So Words Their Way. This is like for word sorts of all kinds, phonics, vocabulary, spelling. It even has like the scope and sequence of patterns to be taught. I've never had this book. I've never used this book, but I did like that it was differentiated by grade level. They had them specific for second, third, fourth. So that could be a resource for you. And then this is a new resource that we just, some of us got in our book hook, I believe, with the Scholastic trainings. And as I was looking through, it's mostly for the guided reading word study, but it also is differentiated by level. And it does have like ideas and recommendations on how to utilize it in just partners. So like if you just had 2 students doing it together, which immediately I thought of stations. So if anybody has this on their campus, it'd be worth looking through to see if there's ideas that you can gain from that as well. Organization of Daily 5 in general. You've probably seen it everywhere. Like there's clip charts and kids' numbers and names on it, or, you pick where they go, or this versus the students choose. That's completely up to you. Like the sisters would say that, Eventually, we want students to all have a choice in where they go. But just to be able to get it started, I would recommend that you tell the students where they're going to go and rotate it through, and then gradually release them to, okay, I'm going to choose which center I want to do today and tomorrow and whatever. Seesaw for word work, I think that's a great idea. If you have like lessons on there, or if they're just taking, like showing their evidence that they did the word work. But yeah, you can definitely switch it up and do 1 week more hands-on, another week, you know what, I don't have time to build another hands-on lesson. We're going to do the word work that's already within our device. Like, definitely take turns. I would recommend once in a while doing a hands-on manipulation of a sort of some sort, though, because of their age, and they feel like it is playing and they're on their devices enough already. If we can, once in a while, give them that opportunity to either sort or write or build and create. Good question, though. Thank you. There's also the digital organization. I've seen this in a lot of classrooms as well, where they just have the centers, and they have like a whole bank of kids' names down here and on the smart board, and they would just the kids would drag their name to where they're going for that day. And the teacher could determine, can we only have, I want no more than 5 or 6 at a station. But that's definitely up to you. You just have to teach them that in your lessons up to this point, like what it is that you would want. So that would be one way of showing choice. And then the timer would go on, and that would be rotation 1. We're going to get started. While they're doing their thing, you're going back to do guided reading. Another one here is for when like you have kids that maybe start at different times, and then they start their timer when they're ready or when their group starts for whatever reason. This one for me, I'm not sure how they made it work with like the times going off at like different intervals, but that's what it looked like. And then resources, I want us to take a minute just to look in the folder. So if you click on this link, it should take you to the folder we created today, Rhonda and I. We have these after school PD offerings, and this one's daily 5. Back when we were LSTs, there was a folder that was shared with all of us. And we had tons of resources for daily 5 in it, but they were only shared to everyone else, I think, if you had a link or if we shared them out. Whereas this is just anybody who has this link can access it. So I've put things in that I referenced in the presentation so far, but based on what you guys had said in the beginning and how you want more resources, I think what I will do is look and like convert those over to this folder so that they're all in one place, because it does become, cumbersome to try to find all the things that are already out there. This is one that I thought would be helpful. It's a QR code. I used to print it in color, laminate it, and then just have it on a ring, and then have I had 5 sets, so that I would say no more than 5 people could do listen to reading, and they would go, and if they wanted to hear Chicka Boom Boom or Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, they would just scan it, and then they could listen to that story. These are all linked to YouTube, I believe, so that might be something we check with our sites on for the filtration. I'm not sure what happened with that, if it's still like something that we can have them watch or not, but that's there. This one was a really helpful resource in that each student used to have their own checklist. And so like Monday, they would just circle where they're going to go or where they went. So this was at the end of the week, something they turned in, or they just showed you that, look at, I did at least all of the centers once this week. Because we don't want them to say, well, I'm just going to do listen to reading every single day, and then they never work on their writing or their word work. So you would tell them before, minimally, we need to at least do every center once, and then you can choose beyond that if you want to do another one more than once. So that chart was helpful. And then the bookmarks are in here for reading strategies. Oops. And then these are the writing charts that I was telling you about earlier. And if you'll notice, there's so many themes. I don't remember how many pages it was, but it's quite a bit. So that was even just a good resource for your writing station or where you do writing. And I would just flip it. I wouldn't give them access to all these at once. I would just put one up that you're working on, or put them in sheet protectors on a ring, and you can scroll through, but just some things that I hoped would, help to get you started with daily 5. There's a bilingual resource I believe Erin Herford had added and shared years ago, but it's the T charts, and it just has they're just translated for us so that they can be in the dual classrooms as well. And then there's like bookmarks in here too that you can use with the kids. The daily 5 posters have already been created. And I mean, again, these were all freebies. You could probably find cuter ones now, but this is just, work on writing. What would you want it to look like? So after they know it, it can be something they refer back to rather than the posters that take up a lot of space in your classrooms. So that was our presentation for today. An hour goes by a lot quicker when you're doing all the talking. I apologize for those of you, well, for everyone else who was sitting and being a great audience. But at this point, what I need from you guys, if you wouldn't mind, is to fill out just a quick Google form for me about the Daily 5, like quick optional PD we had here. And then you have my email address. So if you need support in anything that I talked about today, or you have any other questions, just shoot me an email. That'll be the best way for me to have record of what it is I need to research or find for you or support. And then I can go ahead and do that for you. If you need me to come out to your school site, or if you just have questions, please reach out. Or if you want to talk, that is my number. They gave me a phone here finally. So I have a phone number you can reach me at here in my office. But you're going to click here, fill out the feedback form. And as long as your device was logged in today, you will get credit for participation. And you will be getting an EWA number from Laura Schlent. She's our office clerk here. Once you've received that number, you're going to submit your employee compensation form through the Informed K-12, and you're going to submit it to Nicole Rosales. It's like program coordinator of PD is her title there, but she would be the one to approve that for your hour of pay for our session today. Any last minute comments or thoughts? If not, I want you to put one takeaway in the chat and then do the feedback, and then you guys are good to go. All the private messages are coming in. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your patience. Yes, okay. Yes, take the time to set up stations. Perfect. And again, I'm happy to help. It's hard to know what people need and where. So if you reach out to me, I will help you out in the best way I can with this. And feel free to share the bit.ly with your friends if they want to just look through for resources. We want this to be shared. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Liliana. You guys are sweet. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Um, just saw this one. Alejandra, is there a way for me to share that with you, friend? I don't think I know how. I'm thinking just like the bit.ly. Do you just want the bit.ly?
Hi, I'm trying to find the access to the resources that you were showing, but they're not popping up on my drive at all, or even the presentation.
So type in this bit.ly on my screen and then click on the links and make sure that it'll take you to that.
Okay, thank you. Let me try
Mhm.
that.
Oh, perfect. Yay.
Thank
So
you
yeah,
so
no
much.
problem. Share the bit.ly. Clearly that's the way.
Yes, I will do. Thank you.
Okay, you guys have a nice evening.
You too.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.